Members of the McIntosh community say they still don't trust the chemical plant next door that allegedly exposed them to chlorine gas.
Desperate for answers about the largest chlorine leak since 2010 at the Olin chemical plant last month, dozens of McIntosh residents turned to Fox 10 News Investigates for help. Investigative reporter Katie Weiss heard their concerns and has been working for the past month to uncover the truth about what happened.
She's in the studio with our special report.
Well, there's a lot of things that went wrong on February 15th, from the employee's mistake that led to the chlorine leak to the reason why police officers were sent directly to the place where the cloud of toxic gas had traveled, to the company's failure to effectively alert the impoverished community right across the street about the release of chlorine gas near their neighborhood. One neighbor fears that last mistake may have permanently jeopardized her health.
On February 15th, I actually noticed that the alarm was going off, so I stepped on my porch and I just looked around.
Tammy Reed lives and works directly across the street from the Olin Corporation chemical plant in McIntosh. She remembers the night of the chlorine gas leak vividly.
When I stepped outside and took a big sniff, something is fishy. At that time, I was just thinking, okay, it must be just something malfunctioning with them, because if it actually was something devastating going on, they would actually come around and alarm people and let us know. But like I said, I didn't hear no one did come around.
Olin has admitted that while their shelter-in-place alarm sounded, the community call notification system was not working at the time of the incident. So neighbors were not aware that a toxic gas was floating near their homes. Not long after the leak, Reed said she was diagnosed with asthma.
The next following day, like something was just choking me.
A supervisor called 911 about an hour and a half after the company's incident report shows the leak began. Listen as the supervisor asks for the dispatcher's advice.
There's chlorine gas at the boat landing. Do you think we need an officer to block off the road where nobody go down to the boat landing?
I can send you one if you want me to. How long do you think it'll take for that to blow out?
Well, most of the event is over with.
Okay.
There's still some probably coming off the top of the tank, but it's not a lot. But when I get back to my monitors, I can call you back.
Okay.
Or,
I'll go ahead and have McIntosh stage up right there, and just call me back and let me know, okay?
Okay, thank you.
We were out here on the highway whenever we got the call.
Lieutenant Charles Koger responded to block off the boat landing, the exact spot where the supervisor told the 911 dispatcher the chlorine gas was located.
We could smell the strong smell of chlorine. I was feeling somewhat discomfort in my throat, at the time, breathing it, sort of like a scratchy type feeling.
Koger says they stayed at the boat landing for about 10 minutes, and then they were asked to block off all of River Road because the chlorine cloud was affecting the entire neighborhood. Koger says he got really sick and had to miss work.
It was probably about 2 days after that, I started developing a cough, then being congested. It lasted probably a good week.
He's still upset that Olin did not advise him that he should not be directly in harm's way.
They should be at the top of their game, They wasn't.
In an incident report, Olin said 738 pounds of chlorine gas was released that night due to a lack of attention to detail by employees working at the plant. The report says after maintenance crews finished their work, settings were not returned to normal. So when the night shift came in to do their regular duties, chlorine started leaking. So just how much is 738 pounds of chlorine gas? Well, to put it into perspective, chemical experts tell me it would be just about enough to almost fill one entire tank car, like you see here. Chlorine gas can be deadly. It was weaponized during World War I and has more recently been used as a lethal weapon in the war in Syria. A material safety data sheet written by Olin says chlorine gas is, quote, irritating to the respiratory system, may cause throat pain and cough, even saying it can cause heart disease, respiratory disorders, and asthma.
So I have asthma. asthma also.
Reed and Lieutenant Koger both agree that Olin should be doing more to ensure first responders and nearby residents are safe.
From what I see, I don't think they care because no one actually came out and checked on after the incident happened and see if anyone was affected.
Better communication. Communication is the key to it all. Communication is going to save lives. It'll let us know what we're going into, what we need to do as far as the community concerned. We just hadn't had that from them.
Well, I've asked Olin for an interview multiple times, but I've not yet been granted that opportunity. Instead, Olin released a written statement to us that reads in part, quote, "We have carefully examined everything about the February 15th chlorine release event to determine what we could do to keep this from happening again. Now, while we deployed our emergency plan, there were operational procedures that could have been better implemented. We have also begun the installation of additional equipment that will help us improve our operations." The company went on to write, quote, "We're discussing ways to better inform the community if incidents occur and educate them on shelter-in-place procedures. We're also planning additional drills with local area responders to help them be better prepared. We are sorry for the concerns this incident has caused." So will there ever be any improvements on Olin's part? Well, some neighbors don't believe so because of the company's track record we uncovered. Tonight in part 2 of this special report, I'll show you the company's citation history and how the state's environmental enforcers are responding to the incident. Catch Toxic Release Part 2 tonight on Fox 10 News at 9.
Documents show it was the largest chlorine leak at the Olin chemical plant in McIntosh since 2010, and yet community members say they didn't get any answers about it until we started digging.
That's right. And our investigative reporter Katie Weiss is in the studio now with part 2 of our special report, Toxic Release.
Well, Bob, Lenise, the first time I went to McIntosh to start investigating last month's chlorine leak, I was met by dozens of community members who were waiting to tell me about their concerns, hoping I could find some answers about a chlorine gas leak that happened at the Olin chemical plant on February 15th. Once I started digging, the company started opening up about how they'll make amends. But will Olin really stay true to their word? Many residents aren't so convinced.
Providing that the wind have been coming out of the north, the chlorine would have killed us.
They wanted answers. Their community had allegedly been exposed to a cloud of toxic chlorine gas.
It's scary. They didn't tell us how much got out into the air. They didn't tell us how the leak was caused.
So they turned to Fox 10 News Investigates for help. I uncovered documents from Olin that show 738 pounds of chlorine gas was leaked that night, and the leak was caused by a lack of attention to detail by employees at the plant.
There's chlorine gas at the boat landing.
I also obtained 911 calls that show police were sent directly into the line of danger. Need some responses about what happened. After I started asking questions, residents finally got a chance to meet with Olin last week about the toxic release.
I think the meeting came forth as an effort of the news media being involved, specifically Channel 10 News, because y'all have done wonderful in reference to investigating and coming out and interviewing the community.
McIntosh resident Lucille Kimball Foster went to the meeting with Olin.
We went into ways that they could assist the community in reference to protecting the residents, but we didn't get an actual answer as to if they were going to do it or not.
I found the Olin facility in McIntosh has a track record. In 2014, the EPA fined the facility $1,200 for not having proper procedures to prevent a chemical accident. In 2015, court records show an employee sued the company for being wrongfully exposed to chlorine gas. He ultimately got a settlement of $75,000. Last summer, OSHA fined the facility $9,900 for exposing contractors to a 5-pound chlorine gas cloud release. The OSHA report says when the chlorine leaked, Olin, quote, did not activate the alarm system in place that provided warning necessary for reaction time for safe escape. In total, state and federal records show there have been at least 9 chlorine leaks at the plant since 2010. And the February 15th leak was the largest. It's been more than a month since the massive chlorine leak, and you'll notice these pine trees here in McIntosh are green. But take a walk to the area where Olin told 911 the cloud of chlorine gas was headed, and you'll notice these pine trees are still brown. McIntosh Police Chief Mike Reddy tells me seeing this effect really worries him.
It's a concern to us after seeing what is done to the environment, that what this could be doing to anybody's lungs are very close by.
But the public agency investigating the incident, the Alabama Department of Environmental Management, or ADEM, doesn't appear to be concerned. ADEM's documents show an inspector conducted a 2-hour drive-by of the area and, quote, did not see any damage to trees between the plant property and the river. That report, available online, was accompanied by photos in black and white.
I was appalled at the fact that they said nothing was wrong with the trees. They didn't see any problems with the trees. The trees wasn't affected, and it's clearly still there, even a month later.
Neighbors fear the combination of Olin's past and a lack of strict enforcement from ADEM will end up subjecting them to more hazards in the future.
And I think they should do a more in-depth investigation, because if you just look over it and you just give Olin a pat on the hand, it's going to lead for Olin to say, hey, we can do this again. We don't have to make changes to our protocol. We don't have to make changes to our emergency response plans or anything of that nature. So I do think it needs to be investigated further by ADEM.
Now, I've reached out to ADEM for a comment about the drive-by inspection. ADEM sent me a written statement yesterday writing, quote, since February 15th, 2017, the date of the release, ADEM continues to review all information associated with the release to determine an appropriate course of action. Now, I've also requested an interview with Olin officials several times, but still have not been granted that opportunity. Instead, Olin has released a written statement explaining the EPA fines incurred back in 2014. A PR person for the company says, quote, the $1,200 EPA fine in 2014 was due to inadequate retention of operations procedures documentation. The fine was not related to actual procedures. However, the EPA says Olin, quote, did not provide evidence that operating procedures were current and accurate and that procedures have been reviewed as often as necessary. Now, Olin also wrote to us that the company, quote, is strongly committed to excellence in protecting the health and safety of our employees and those who live and work around our plants. And in a separate statement, the company apologized, quote, we are sorry for the concerns this incident has caused. But some community members called me today and said they're not satisfied with that written apology. They say they want to see a public apology on camera from the facility. I'll let you know if and when Olin accepts our request for an interview.
Welcome back. Another Fox News investigation gets results.
After we exposed a dangerous chlorine leak in McIntosh, the city's police department is now getting respirators to safeguard officers from any future hazards.
Fox News investigative reporter Katie Wise has been covering this story since February. She's in the newsroom now with the very latest. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Bob Lanise. I'm told the equipment just came in last week and officers were promptly trained on how to use the devices. Now, every single police officer in McIntosh will be prepared for the worst. It doesn't look like much at first glance, but this fresh air respirator packs a lot of life-saving potential.
It is an escape pack, which is normally found in industrial facilities, and this is the hooded mask you put over your head, and you just turn your air on, and it's good for 10 minutes.
And that's important for McIntosh police, since a chlorine leak at a nearby chemical plant back in February put the community and officers at risk. On February 15th, Olin Corporation leaked 738 pounds of chlorine gas into the air, which scientists say would be enough to almost fill up a tank car. The EPA says chlorine gas is poisonous. Exposure to it can cause inflammation of the lungs, difficulty breathing, and even respiratory failure. One McIntosh McIntosh police officers said he got sick after responding to the incident.
We could smell the strong smell of chlorine.
Now, Police Chief Mike Reddy says he feels more confident about his officers' safety in the field.
And if they get caught in a chlorine leak on, by not knowing or whatever, they'll have, this will be one of their tools that they can use to escape the area to get to safety.
Olin Corporation paid for all of the respirators, plus training for officers on how to use them. Back in February, right after the leak, neither residents nor law enforcement was able to get many answers from the company about what had happened. Fox 10 News investigated the incident, leading to a series of stories exposing the danger.
They offered to do the maintenance on it after 5 years.
Chief Reddy credits the work of Fox 10 News Investigates for this equipment in his hands today.
I think your reporting definitely did, shine the light that it was a big need, and, Olin stepped up and give the equipment to us that we need to have when we respond to their facility. At the end of the day, police, we have bulletproof vests, we have all our other defense mechanisms, but this is one thing we didn't have, and one thing that is added, we really certainly need it up here with the chemical companies that we have in our city. So yeah, this is going to be a good tool, a good survival tool.
And I'm told the McIntosh Fire Department will also soon receive chlorine detection monitors, which will also be purchased by Olin. Now, I reached out to Olin for a comment today, and I just got an email back from one of their representatives. It reads in part, quote, "We are focused on protecting the health and safety of our employees, the community, and the environment." Reporting live in the newsroom, I'm Katie Weiss, Fox 10 News.